All right, so let's talk about the video. If I have to record this for those people who are gone, so they need to be able to click on the link and watch it, or Google it and find this video from Hans. And then we're going to talk about it right now in class with just some things that you found interesting. So, who wants to go first? Sydney?
After the Second World War, or after World War II, the United States was like in the front, so it's like the wealthiest.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
Because we probably had like more like resources and like stuff to like we just had like more stuff.
Okay. Do you think if we had lost the war, would that have been different?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably so, right? Who else? Who's that, Kaylee?
In 1810, life expectancy was 40.
Was 40, right? How old are your parents right now? In their 40s,
Yeah.
maybe early 50s, maybe not. Probably not, because my parents are. But 40s, right? Can you imagine that? Like, just living to your parents' age and being done? Like, that's crazy, right? Like, you wouldn't know who your grandparents were. Granted, they were probably having kids a lot earlier, probably like in their teens, but still, you probably wouldn't know your grandparents in the 1800s, right? If the life expectancy was in the 40s. Kaylee, what year did you say that was? 1810. LE was 40. Who else? Who's that, Colin?
As you said, like after some of the colonies started gaining independence, their healthcare improved and the life expectancy more.
Yeah, so healthcare. Why do you think that is?
Since they were independent, they were able to use their own resources and not have to use another colony that ruled over them. So they were able to afford healthcare.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Noah?
Things like the Spanish flu brought down life expectancy.
Yeah, so sickness for sure, right? Like you saw all the bubbles or all those circles like drop dramatically, like with war and with sickness, right? Because that took out a lot of the population. Yeah. Who else? Garrett?
I thought it was interesting how Hans said that all countries could become rich and healthy.
Why?
It's like, it doesn't really seem like it like today.
Yeah, because there is such a difference, right? Like there's a lot of countries that are up there like us, but also when you're looking at all of those dots, like which color was really towards the bottom? Which was what country or continent? Africa, right? And so there is a big disparity, which we talked about in Unit 1, right? And we're still kind of talking about in Unit 2, and we'll kind of watch that and like see that throughout this year, how big of a difference there is between the rich and the poor. But obviously the goal there is to close that gap, right? And to try to bring up all of those LDC countries to industrialize and be in that NIC stage and hopefully get to the MDC stage where they are wealthy and they have money in their economy and their healthcare is really booming, right? Okay, what else? Not you, Sydney, someone else. Give me someone else. Back table. Someone speak up,
And
Ross.
You said that in 1948 the countries were the furthest apart they've ever been.
Yeah, 1948. Yeah, okay, well, let's think about that. So why would that be the case in 1948? What is happening?
World War II.
Yeah, for sure. But what happened at the end of that? Or what just happened in the U.S.? Before World War II, or before the World Wars in general? Depression, but before that, what had happened? Industrialization, right? So you have, that's really like late 1800s, early 1900s, that's what starts the divide between the rich and the poor, right? Like you see that the life expectancy is increasing. You see that the healthcare is increasing in the rich countries. People start making more money, right? They have different types of jobs. Yes, remember, think primary, secondary, tertiary, quaternary, all of those jobs start kind of, all of those, it starts differentiating then, okay, in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And so you have this big jump between people really increasing and everybody else who's still really low. And so that's probably why there's so much disparity there and so much difference, right? Okay, give me another good one. What do you think about the dot that he took out of China, or he took the China's dot, and then he started pulling out different things? What do you think about that? Sorry, Colin, you already spoke. Someone else. Don't make me call on you. People who normally don't speak up. Your turn. What'd you think about that, Erica?
I thought it was interesting because like some parts of China were like really like rich and healthy, and then other parts like funny. So as an average, it like brought China down.
Yeah, why do you think that is? How big is China?
Really big.
Like really big, right? We drew it on our sketch map last week, right? It's huge. So you have really wealthy parts of China. Where do you think those are? Think about that 4-level analysis that we did at the beginning of the year. Where are those cities that are really the coast, right? Because what types of jobs are in those cities? Huh? Yeah, like trade jobs, right? So probably tertiary, quaternary level jobs. Maybe, probably not as many of those as there are like secondary jobs, right? With all the factories and stuff. So that's how they're trading, right? They're making all the stuff to send to us, basically, right? So those are all happening on the coast, right? That's where a lot of jobs are. But do you think that in the inner parts of China, do you remember the physical features that were in the middle parts of China? The mountains and the what? In the deserts, right? Do you think a lot of people live there? No, but if there are people there, what do you think that they're doing?
Dying.
Probably dying, yeah. But do you think that they have very much money? No, because there's not factories in the middle parts of China, right? Because we've talked about how all those jobs are on the coast, okay? So the middle parts of China, like he said, were like way down low, like with the rest of the Africa countries, because they're really poor, right? Their healthcare, their life expectancy is really low. So it's important to see how countries can also have a lot of disparity between rich and poor themselves, okay? Yes?
Was Asia poor like in the 1800s?
Yeah. So until like Japan and China and South Korea started their industrialization process, which was later, that was after us, they were relatively poor. They had a lot of people, but they were still really poor because they took on industrialization after us. Okay, so like you'll get into this with world history next year whenever you start learning about like ancient civilizations and stuff. While there was a lot of people there, they didn't have a lot of money. Okay, and we're gonna look at it here in a second as to why there were so many people. Okay, make sense? All right. The next slide has you thinking about Starbucks. How many Starbucks are there? Like a ton, right? So think about, I know that you're not familiar with London's geography, but London, is it highly populated or not? Highly, right? Okay, so let's take a guess. If you're standing at the corner of these two streets, not important. Just think of if you're standing at a cross section. Okay, you're standing at an intersection, and you have a 5-mile radius out around you. Let's take a guess as to how many Starbucks there would be in that 5-mile radius.
6.
We have what? 6.
62.
Ooh, 62. Noah, what else? 1? Well, there's like 2 Starbucks close to here.
Oh, there's one.
There's one right across there. Where's the other one?
There's one by like the McDonald's.
Yeah, one by the McDonald's. Where's the
And
other
there's
one?
one at
No,
Target.
there's one down close to 423. There's one in Target. That's 3 right there.
One by like
Yeah, we already counted that one. But that's like 3 within like a 2-mile radius right there.
yeah, so they're people.
And that's just in Frisco. So how much do you think? What's another guess? 15,
In
20?
Frisco, in all of
No, in London. This example.
50.
Wait, what was the crazy number? What'd you say, Noah?
62.5.
Okay, you can't have half a Starbucks.
Yes, you can. You know those restaurants that are like split like
That's
this.
so
Okay, but no. Creative. 50?
Y'all are 60. Way too much. There's not.
Y'all aren't even close.
100.
89,
There are
even?
not more than 89 Starbucks in a 5-mile radius.
Bet.
That. You got your information.
Okay, you can't Google it, cheater.
You could do.
Oh, it is? Oh, man.
That's wrong.
It is. It's 161. That's the right answer. 161. There's 161 Starbucks in a 5-mile radius.
wrong.
Isn't that crazy? It's not wrong, though. Think about, like, have you ever been to a big city? Like a big city? Like New York City
Starbucks
or San
lined up
Francisco?
next to
I've been
Yeah,
to
but
Vancouver.
that's a little too excessive.
I mean, you would think so, but the thing is that they're all still in business because people go there, right? Think about it. All these people. Think about the big idea
Have you
here.
been there where there's 161 Starbucks?
I've been to London.
But you have been to like the park.
No, I haven't.
Okay, so there's no way.
Okay, but it's there. We need to map it. Look it up for me.
That's probably like.
Look it up. Because there's 161. Think about it though. Okay, there's so many people living in London that all of these Starbucks are still like in business, right? Because people go there. The point of this is that there's so many people to keep all of these Starbucks like alive and in business. And that's crazy because think about if you're in a big city, I know it's hard for you to think about this, but if you're in a big city, you don't have a car, okay? People in New York don't have cars. People in London don't have cars. They take the tube. It's really cool. But on their way from their house to the metro, it's called the tube, the underground train, it's like subway system. Like they have to get there, right? So people might stop in a Starbucks on their way to the tube, or they'll ride across town underground in the subway or whatever, and they'll come up on their way to work, and they probably pass 3 or 4 Starbucks. And think about all of the different people. Like in here, there's 29 of us, I think, in here. And if we're all coming from different houses and we're all going to different places to work, think about all the different paths that we could take, right, if you're in a big city. So everybody is going from somewhere to somewhere. And so Starbucks, they're kind of smart. Like they know where to place their stores to get the most traffic, right, and to make the most profit. That's what it all comes down to with business, right? And so they've found all of these places, and they're still in business because people will buy their coffee on their way to work, right? So that's how all these stores are still alive, and that just shows how many people are actually in London, okay? The idea here is thinking about the people, right? We're talking about population and migration. So there's so much of a population in London that all of these stores are still alive, okay? Big picture here. That's what it is.
I see one.
Are you on the streets?
Yes,
Okay, but how zoomed in are you?
all the way. There's one.
Well, you can't be all the way because it's a 5-mile radius.
Well, there's one.
It is 161. Zoom back out.
I'm zooming in and out.
Okay, that's your homework for
Like
today.
a week's worth of Starbucks can give you like a year's worth of coffee you can make at home.
I know, but it's crazy. It's also expensive, but people buy it, right? How many of your parents stop and get coffee?
No.
Mostly every day. Yeah, Ross. Yeah, I know because my parents do it too. It's crazy. Okay, moving on. We're moving on. David, that's your homework. Yes, it is. Because you're like super passionate about it, and I love it. You're gonna figure it out, and you're gonna tell me. Map it.
I think there's just a skyscraper with Starbucks like stacked on each other.
No, that's not what I'm saying
So,
at
like,
all.
There's a Starbucks and a Starbucks and a Starbucks.
Yeah, dude. Like
No,
every other block.
no.
Yep.
No.
Look it up.
I did.
Did someone have a question? Okay, let's talk about this. Next slide. So, this is asking you kind of to think about your grandparents and your parents, to think about how many people there were in the world a long time ago and how many there are now. So we know that population has been growing, right? But let's think about numbers. So how many brothers and sisters do you have? I have one sister.
0.
Who else? 0, okay.
I have 2 sisters.
2. Can anyone beat 2?
-3.
2 brothers, okay. Anyone have more than 3 kids in their family?
My mom had 6 brothers and sisters.
Okay, we're not there yet, but thank you, because I'm about to add on to that. So everybody has at least 3 kids or less in their family in this room. Colin, how many brothers? You have 3, so there's 4 kids? Yeah, there's 4 kids? Okay. Okay, so that's how many siblings we have. So, parents, David, you said your mom has what?
6.
So, one of 6 kids?
Yeah.
Okay, my mom's one of 5 kids. What else?
2.
2, 5?
8.
Did someone say 8?
Yeah.
Whoa.
1.
Okay.
My dad.
But relatively higher than the first one, right? Than the first question. Okay. How many did your grandparents have? My grandpa was one of 10.
So was mine. My grandparents have
5?
24.
What? No, you're joking.
Just joking.
Okay. How many? Do you know how many siblings your grandparents
I
had?
don't know. I think my grandma has 12.
Okay, so maybe 12, 4, 7, 4. Okay, so what do we notice about these trends?
I keep saying lower.
higher.
Well, yeah. So think about it. From a long time ago, our grandparents were having how many kids? A lot or little? A lot, right? Why is that the case? Because what was it like in the earlier 1900s?
They do more like labor and stuff.
Yeah, they needed more labor, right? They needed people to work the farms, right? Garrett, what?
He doesn't have anything to say.
What? Does it relate to this? No? Okay, then we're not talking about it. We're talking about our grandparents, right? So our grandparents needed a lot of people in their families to work on the farms, right? Like that's what my grandpa did. He was like one of 8 or 9 or 10 kids or however many there was. There was a lot of them because they needed them to work the farm. And they didn't have a lot of money. The Dust Bowl hit and the Great Depression hit, and they moved to California because his dad was trying to find a job. Like they didn't have any money. He remembers getting like a pair of shoes for Christmas. He really wanted a pair of shoes, and he got them for Christmas when he was little. And that was like the only present that any of his siblings got, was because he wanted the pair of shoes and they didn't have any money. Okay, so like that's the times that they were living in, right? Like little money, but lots of kids because they needed them to work. Okay, so that's what our grandparents were like. So then with our parents' generation, we see that the number here goes down a little bit, right? Like still kind of like not small by any means, but not as big as what our grandparents were, right? And then with our generation, you don't have near as many siblings as our parents or grandparents, right? But why is our population growing then? Because all of those people are having kids, okay? So a long time ago, we're going to look at population pyramids like next week, but all of those people who are old now, used to be young, right? So there was a lot of people down here. And as they get older, they move into the like childbearing range, right? So like more people are having kids. And then eventually that number moves up, right? So then our parents became able to have kids, and that's why we're here, right? So like there's more people in the population having kids, so that's why the population increases. Does that make sense? Do you see that? Like that's why it grows. Okay, even though our numbers are going down, like per family unit, as a whole, the population is rising. Okay, so if you want to write that down, you should probably write that down. Okay? Yeah, so as our family units are getting smaller, our parents' generation had more people in it. Okay, so there's more people who are able to have kids, which is why the population is growing. Jake, you're gonna miss out, buddy. Good luck on that quiz if you're not paying attention. Avery.
What was the very last part?
I don't remember what I said. So there's more people in the population who are able to have kids. That's why our population is growing. Okay, write it down. Okay, so for total population, with total population, it is the birth rate, the death rate, and it takes into consideration migration, okay? So when we're looking at the total population of a country or of a place, it's taking into consideration how many people are being born, how many people are dying, and how many people are moving into the country, all right? With arithmetic density, it's kind of a weird word, but really it's just taking the total population, okay, the total number of peeps, and you're dividing it by the total land area. All right, so that's looking at like, if we're looking at Wakeland's zone to feed into Wakeland, we're taking the whole population that lives within that zone and we're dividing that by the land area that we're spread out between. Yes? Yeah. Take a pass. So that would mean that we're taking all of the people that live there and dividing it equally across the area. But the trick here is that we know that not everyone is equally spread out, right? Like think about if you're driving towards Main Street, there's that big field over on the left side, across from all those houses, like close to Wakeland, right? That doesn't have any houses on it. If you think like back towards Lone Star, right there at El Dorado and Legacy, they're just now building a neighborhood right there, right? That used to be a big field too. So like, there are areas where people aren't actually living, but with arithmetic density, it's taking all of the people and dividing it equally. It does not take into consideration, let's write that down, does not consider the clustering of people. Okay, so you have Griffin Park over there. What other neighborhoods do you live in? Cambridge? Is that what you said? Heather Ridge.
Trails.
The Trails, okay. All of those neighborhoods, okay, where people are grouped together. But you know that not every plot of land is the same, that not all of the houses are equally spaced apart, okay? So it doesn't take that into consideration. It just takes all of the people who are living in Wakeland and dividing it by that area of the land, and it says that all of those people are evenly spread out, okay? Just like that. It's what it looks like, okay? Instead of what it is actually like with clustering of people or in specific neighborhoods, right? Okay, but arithmetic density is taking that total population and dividing it by the total land area, okay? Make sense? Any questions? Kind of confusing. All right. Oh, geez. All right, so we have all of the people. We've talked about how there are so many people, but if we're looking at a map, most people, the biggest parts of our population in the whole world, remember how many people are there in the world? 7 billion, okay? The largest parts of our people live where? Do you remember the PIN code 1114, whatever it was, right? Wasn't it 1114? The other day? What was that for? Where was the for? Asia, right? Okay, so if we're looking at our 4 large like population clusters, these are the 4 places, okay? It's going to be in East Asia. So East Asia was what countries? From our sketch map last week, do you remember? China. What else? Nope. Japan. What else? The Koreas and Taiwan. Okay, that was East Asia. All right. And South Asia, what is South Asia, the subcontinent? What is that? What do you think? You know what that means? We did South Asia on the first sketch map. Think about it. What would South Asia be? I mean, there's a map right there. What is South Asia? What's that one that sticks out in the water? Whoa, what? Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a peninsula, but what one country is really big that has a lot of people in it? India. Someone was starting it. Okay, Ross, thank you. India. India is known as South Asia, okay? The subcontinent, like that's India, all right? And then you also have Bangladesh and Pakistan, that's over there too, okay? That's considered South Asia. Europe, you know where Europe is. That's our 3rd largest population cluster, okay? All of Europe, so all of those countries over there, you know where Europe is. And then Southeast Asia was also on our sketch map from last week, okay? What countries were in Southeast Asia? Remember?
Korea.
No, Korea is in East Asia, remember? Look at a map. Pull out your sketch maps. Southeast Asia area. So I think we did it in green. Vietnam, Philippines. What's the really populated one? Indonesia. Indonesia is so populated. It's like super populated. Okay, all of those tiny ones down in the corner there, okay, all of those little countries, but Indonesia is very populated. Indonesia and Malaysia, remember those island countries that we wrote down, or that we drew? Okay, those are really populated, all right? So with all of these are our 4 big population clusters, okay? This is where most people in the world are living, all right? So grab a colored pencil. Grab 4 different colored pencils because we're gonna color them. And we're gonna label them, okay? Our first one, we have East Asia. So remember Japan, and China, and the Koreas, and Taiwan. This is East Asia.
Everybody can see.
And we have South Asia. Remember the subcontinent. So India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, all of that is South Asia. Europe, we have all of Europe over here. And then we have Southeast Asia. Okay, so circle it, shade it in, whatever you want to do, and label it. Take note, 1 dot equals 100,000 people. So you can see where all of those dots are, where there's a lot of people. All right, did you do it? Pretty easy, right? Okay. All right, well, okay, so we had the Nile River Valley over here. This was the Nile. We have Mesopotamia here. We have the Indus River Valley here. Indus and the Ganges. So we'll put Indus and Ganges. It's hard to read. And then we had the Yellow River and the Yangtze River, I believe. I don't know how I spell that. The Yangtze River, okay? Yellow and the Yangtze River. I'm not sure how you spell that. Yangtzi, I think. Okay. Okay, So you can see why our big population clusters are where they are because of the river valleys, right? Okay. The next slide. So let's talk about why China and India are the most populated. Okay, this is where most of our people live, and India and China. Which one has more people? Do you think? China. China's number 1. India's number 2. Okay, that's predicted to change in the future. I think Hans talked about it last week in that Don't Panic video, didn't he? But China's number 1 right now. India's number 2, but that's expected to flip in like 2050. Okay, so. River valleys, people are in China and India because of river valleys. This is where people settled first. Remember our human journey map that we did last week? People moved across the earth, but they also settled. Where they permanently settled was around river valleys, okay? What was the Neolithic Revolution, anyone? Do you know what this is? Anyone? Want to take a guess? What the Neolithic Revolution is? Any takers? If it's in a river valley, what do you think the Neolithic Revolution did?
Territory.
What about territory?
Like fighting over who gets it.
Kind of. But let's think about why people were in river valleys. What would the Neolithic...
Fishing.
Farming, okay? Because with water, they were able to irrigate things, right? Okay, so this was the transition to ag culture, okay? So they're no longer hunting and gathering, okay? So instead of following their food around and waiting for things to grow, they started experimenting with actual like planting of things, okay? What grows best in what type of soil and what type of climate, because they're in river valleys. They have water now to irrigate their crops, okay? So that's what the Neolithic Revolution is. And so with that helped people settle in the river valleys, okay? So instead of now wandering around finding their food, they can stay in one place and they can settle down. They can have a family and stay there for like lots of generations, right? Like they can stay in the same village and have their kids. Like they can grow up in the same little hut if that's where they're living, right? Because now that they're farming, they can have food year round, right? They're not having to chase down their food anymore, okay? So with that, agriculture changed everything for us, okay? So instead of hunting and gathering, now people can stay there and they can start planting things and grow things for their families, and then eventually it will turn into growing a lot of things for profit, right? But that's not until way later. But because of that, we are in river valleys, okay? That's why river valleys are super important. Do you remember what rivers were in China and India? Or what river valleys are there? You have the Indus River Valley that was in Pakistan. There's the Ganges that was in India. The Tigris actually is, but that's not in Asia, but I'll take it. The Tigris Euphrates. Remember? Where was that at? What country is that in? Iraq. Yes, good. Iraq. So people settled there a lot too. In China, there was the Yellow River. Yep. Okay, so all of those are really big river valleys, and that's where the most people settled a really long time ago, okay? When people started settling down and staying in one place, it was because we figured out agriculture, and that's where the people were staying, was because that's where the water was, okay? They weren't living in deserts, they weren't living in the mountains, they were living where they could grow things, okay? Oh, wait. It's okay. because here are the river valleys right here. Okay, so again, let's shade them in. Oh, we also forgot about Egypt and the Nile, because people settled along the Nile. We have the Tigris and the Euphrates, also known as Mesopotamia. The Indus and the Ganges in India. And the Yellow River, oh, and also the Yangtze River as well, was also in China. Okay? So all 4 of those. That's why there are still so many people there. And what I want you to do is draw these 4 river valleys on that first map that we labeled, okay, with the population clusters. Okay, remember from a few slides ago? So a few slides ago, the first one where we did East Asia, Southeast Asia, Europe. Now go back and label these 4 river valleys in with that, okay? I don't know if my notes will still be there. Where are we at? Okay, so we are going to watch this heartbeat video. There we go. Okay. Next one. All right, so the J curve. This is, we need to update it first of all, because we are at 7.2 billion. So just draw our line, draw our line up more to 7.2. Okay, so we're filling in our arrow just a little bit more. You missed a cool video, Erica. All right, so this J curve is just going to keep going up. So think about how far we were way down here at the bottom, like years ago. I don't know why there aren't any years on here. But you can see once we got to about 1 billion people, then it really took off to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 billion. Okay? And we've talked about why that has happened because of industrialization and healthcare and all of that stuff, right? So now there's just more and more people. All right, the carrying capacity of a country is the number of organisms, so people, humans, that a piece of land can support without negative effects. So without basically depleting the resources that that piece of land can provide for people, animals, everything like that, okay? So I want you to talk about it with your group for a second, but do you think that we have reached it, yes or no? And tell me why, okay? So come up with an argument with your group, and then we'll come back and talk about it in a second, okay? So ready to go. Let's come back and talk about it. So have we reached the carrying capacity? No. Who said no?
Me.
Avery, why?
Because, like,
Kennedy and Haley, get in on this.
We said that we didn't because they're like, it seems like we have a lot of people, but we have like so much space because we're just really spread out,
Okay.
and there isn't that many negative effects.
Okay, so you think that there's still a lot of room left to spread out on, especially like watching that heartbeat video, you can see where everybody's like clustered up, and so there is relatively a lot of land. Remember the video that we watched for our IWOC party, how they said all 7 billion people can fit within Los Angeles, which is crazy to think about. So yeah, like we can all spread out more, but if you think about the different types of land, right, like you need a good climate and soil and all of that to be able to feed a population. So people aren't going to live in the deserts or the mountains. But I don't think that you're too far wrong off of that. Like people do, like we could spread out. It's just people tend to go where other people are, right? Kaylee, what's y'all's argument?
we said no
Okay.
Because we already use a lot of our fossil fuels and also pollute our land a lot.
Okay, so you think that we haven't reached it or we have reached it? Like, do you think that we can keep having more people?
No.
No. Okay, so you think that we have reached our carrying
Yeah,
capacity.
because
Like,
we
we've
have-
maxed everything out.
If we had more people, then there'd be more pollution.
Okay, yeah, pollution for sure. Avery?
Well, people also like die, so it kind of like
Mhm.
balances itself.
Okay, yeah, because the death rate is also included in there, but birth rate is still. I guess it's like normaling it off, but the more people that we have that have kids, that's why our population is increasing, right? What are some other arguments, Alex?
Well, like she said something about pollution.
Mm-hmm.
But if we bring some more people in from like different countries, they could probably convince majority of our people to go like more to the green side.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, if we keep having more people, we're definitely going to have to figure out the pollution problem, right?
Like it would definitely like put a kick into it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, back table. Either one of the back tables. What was your argument? Have we reached our carrying capacity? Zach, you're nodding your head yes. Why?
Because of fossil fuels and water, we have, there's not a lot of clean water, and we keep on like burning fossil fuels, the water will just get more dirty and less water will be drinkable. So,
Okay, even though there's 70% of the world is water. You're right. You could purify though, right? Okay, back table. Nick, Grace, Holden, your turn.
Alright, so.
Well, I don't think your name is Nick, Grace, or Holden, so
Sorry.
try again. Thank you though. I appreciate you. It's someone else.
I said no, but I think that we're close.
Okay, why?
There's like still like a lot more room with like the kind of fossil fuels and all that stuff.
Okay, give me something else that someone else hasn't already said. Nick, Grace. Think about it. Look alive. But think about it. Do you think that there could be more people on this earth?
Yeah,
Why?
because Canada can be.
Ah, Canada, and they're pretty wealthy, right? Like, think about them. Think about Australia. They're wealthy too, but they have like huge desert in the middle of their country.
You can make it work.
I mean, you could. It would just be expensive. It would be expensive, right? To import water and all of your resources and stuff to the middle into a desert. Like, that would be expensive. Okay? So carrying capacity, the amount or the ability to be able to provide for all of the organisms living there. Okay? And then I just want you to think about how Rosling's message connects to the population explosion notes that we just talked about, okay? So his message at the beginning from that video, I want you to write me a sentence at the bottom of your notes, okay, or out onto the side in those lines. Write me a sentence or two explaining that, and we'll be done. But we're not going to talk about it. You don't need to copy it down. I'll be grading this from your Padlet at the end of the 6 weeks, so you better make sure that you do it, or you won't